If you think fishing is a relaxing, peaceful pastime, you haven't seen the extreme fishing antics of Matt Watson. Forget boats, Watson can do his fishing from just about anything, including a helicopter. He's now putting together a new show called Extreme Fisherman that premieres this fall on the Discovery Channel. Matt, good morning.
Good morning. Well, it's middle of the night here in New Zealand, but good morning anyway.
Yeah, I guess what? Fishing from a boat just got a little boring for you, so you decided you needed to up the ante a bit?
Yeah, well, it was one way of upping the ante. I mean, I've been around fishing my whole life, and having caught so many fish, the thrill started wearing off, so I started thinking of ways to bring back the thrill of, catching my first big fish again.
Well, I mean, you not only catch it with a hook and a line, I mean, I want to get right to this footage of you in a helicopter, jumping out of that helicopter and seemingly right onto the back of a marlin. How did you come up with this?
Well, funnily enough, we were in Vanuatu filming for our show, and the night before we were heading out on a shoot in a helicopter. The helicopter pilot was telling us about how in New Zealand he used to take guys up to do live deer capture. And that planted the seed. I thought, well, that would be pretty cool to catch a big fish in the same sort of vein, jumping out and grabbing a hold of it. And I didn't say anything at the time, and it wasn't until we were flying back after our shoot from an outer island to the main island, and I said, would you mind if I jumped out onto a fish? And he said, yeah, sure, let's do it. And so that's when I made the first attempt. But it took several attempts, I can tell you, to pull it off.
A couple of questions on this, Matt. First of all, how does that marlin not get spooked by that helicopter flying in so close?
Well, I mean, for a start, fish really aren't the smartest creatures. I mean, people assume because they're big that they're intelligent, but they're in fact not. They really are just focused on food. And we used a few fishing tricks to keep it near the surface. Let's say we were making sure the marlin was well fed. It was sort of the first attempt was fairly brazen and raw, and it didn't work terribly well because the fish, they're a wild animal, they move. So we had to come up with some ideas of keeping the fish near the surface.
Yeah, and the other question, being in the television business, a lot of guys here in the studio said, how did they get that underwater camera in just the right place at just the right time?
It took, I can tell you, well, it took 11 months of doing attempts. And that was the big one. It was not only getting the cameraman in the water, it was so there was no bubbles left from the boat that was moving. There was a lot of moving parts to it, but of course I can't divulge too much. I'm sure you wouldn't have Peter Jackson telling Steven Spielberg how he made Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, you got a good point there. I'll let you get off on that one. Hey, a couple of things. As we start to take a look at some of the other footage of your encounters, I know you hooked a marlin on a surfboard. We should just tell people that marlin are not, as they can see, small fish. These things can get up to 1,700 pounds. So what's the danger element in this?
Well, obviously they've got a bill, which is the sharp, pointy thing on the front of them, and of course that's sharp, and they've got a lot of weight and power behind them. So you don't have to be a genius to figure out that if that hit you square on, it's probably going to go through you. In fact, in New Zealand, just in the last couple of weeks, there's been 2 fishermen that have been speared. So obviously, being close to the water, it was something that I had to be very careful of.
So you're on a surfboard on one encounter, you're on a jet ski way off the coast on another one.
Yeah.
Do you, by the way, should I mention, you always catch and release, correct?
That's right. Well, most of the time. I mean, I've caught in the vicinity of 1,100 marlin, and I've killed 9. But all 9 that I've killed have been eaten, and I don't begrudge anyone that wants to kill a fish so long as they eat it and they don't waste it. I mean, let's face it, we've got to eat, and the most responsible way to eat your fish is to go and catch it yourself.
So, Matt, I'm almost afraid to ask, but what do you have up your sleeve next?
Well, it's funny. The ideas, or most of the ideas that I come up with, are born just from hanging around with a few buddies, having a few beers, and throwing some ideas around. And just the other night, in one of our creative discussions, I guess you could call it, one of my friends said, "How about a car tyre tube, like an inner tube from a car tyre?" and I like the sound of that one. So there's probably a few more brews to be had on script development on that one, but I can give you guys a scoop that it could well be the inner tube of a car tyre.
Well, it's obviously we have a lot in common. That's how some of our best ideas get developed also. Matt Watson, hey, it's fascinating footage, and it's fun talking to you, Matt. Thanks very much.
Great. Thank you, guys.